for those of you watching, please, on our blog, let us know how it looks. I mean, we have our new camera. How's the sound? Give us some feedback. And should we put the lights up, Tracy? The lights are up? OK. And for those of you here, you get to ask questions. And so we've got an amazing panel here. And obviously, feel free to ask us about things that are precise and targeted to anyone here, or something broad in general, whatever's on your mind. And thank the three of you for great and mind-stretching presentations here. So have at it, folks. I think, do we have a mic? How do we do this? Yeah. So and remember, this will be on YouTube forever. So behave when you ask your question. Go ahead. Yes, Walter.
I think I have two questions. The first is, if you look at the explosion of social media, social networking, and when it comes to public policy and politics, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, are we, as people look at what they want to relative to public policy, they go to where they think they are going to hear the answer they want to hear. My point is, are we risking isolating people's political knowledge, political education, because I can go to a certain area where I'm going to hear what I want to hear? Are we risking that? My second question is, this is a tsunami for any public policy official. The number of ways that people can now begin to learn about the issues and what policymakers are doing, this is a tsunami. My question is, if you go back 10, 15 years ago, you got a letter, you maybe got a phone call into the office. Things have changed. How are public policy makers dealing with what is going to become, already has become, and is only going to get worse, this tsunami of public input into policy?
Who wants to?
I can start with a couple thoughts. The social networks, the social media networks themselves are trying to combat the idea that they've just got this sort of echo chamber. So on YouTube, for instance, you can post replies, but you can also post reply videos. So, and the same way, if someone already goes to YouTube knowing that they're looking to find something that reinforces what they believe, well, you can, in the search results, if they are using search to get there, in the search results themselves, you could be putting videos that show alternative points of view. So there are ways sort of built in, and I think you'll see those continue to evolve, to try to at least help people see that there are alternative angles on things. In terms of how you, the second part of your question, which I grant the tsunami effect, I think more and more you will need tools to help sort through that. I mean, Radar was our entry into that tool space. But more and more you will need tools to help sort through and aggregate and visualize what's going on, because it's just hard to just even imagine it in some cases.
Yeah, I'd just add to the second part of your question. I think our view is that there's a social media strategy for every budget and every time commitment that someone might have, from an hour a week to an hour a month to an hour a day to to a strategy that costs nothing to one where people are spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a month. And the key to navigating it all is really starting with the basics in terms of understanding what are your objectives, and then and what do you want to accomplish, and then it becomes much easier to figure out where do you invest and where do you spend your time to achieve that objective.
Actually, just one last thought. And if you are a PR person or a candidate or someone behind an issue, and your opponent starts to catch fire on the internet, and really in terms of real active, positive feedback to their online videos, et cetera, the one thing you can't do is just do nothing.
Walter, I'll just add one thing, which is I think that, and it's relevant to what you were saying, is that I think just in the way the Obama campaign and the Dean campaign and lots of others have reinvented politics over the last 5 years, particularly on the Democratic side. And again, I recommend Jose Vargas's piece in the Post today to sort of look at what the Republicans are doing, because they're not standing still on this, is that we're going to see a reinvention of government and how government itself responds to all of this. I mean, and the idea of us sticking with sort of our 19th century or early 20th century government in the way that it interacts with people when the consumer experience of how they interact with the outside world is changing, so much that I think that the Obama administration has an incredible opportunity to really reimagine what a government looks like in the 21st century, given all of this. And the line I use is that I can't wait to the Monday cabinet meeting in a few weeks when they're all actually in there. And the DHS director and the HHS director start talking about, who got more YouTube hits, who saw more of their YouTube video, or who got more comments on their blog post, right? I think you're going to see competition inside the administration, and even inside of, you're seeing it with the Republicans in Congress, right? The Republican House members are Twittering and doing all this stuff, and there's become sort of a competition, I think, among some of our political leaders for who gets it more. And Obama, I think, was himself a tipping point for all this, and I think you're going to see really the whole idea of what a government could be. It's going to have to go through reinvention in every way, really over the next 20 to 30 years, in a way that I think is going to be very exciting, I think, for the American people, because it will certainly bring government closer to them than it is now, because government is very distant for most people in this country, and I think there's an opportunity to change that. But this is a conversation we'll be having, I think, until we're retired, I think, Walter. Yes, Don, over here.
Thank you. Point of clarification, Simon, it's actually 6 years now since the Dean campaign exploded.
It's 2009, thank you.
Two questions.
Spring of 2003.
Spring of 2003. A couple of questions, sort of, I guess, technical points. One on radar, identifying your number ones, I think you described it, by downloading videos. How do you identify those individuals through that, or what other mechanism does that?
There's a section in Radar that can specifically show whose videos got the most hits, the most comments, the most activity, who drove the most traffic to their videos. There would be some human element as well. You need to go in and make sure that's not because they're trashing you. But that tool can be used to help identify the people who are really spreading your message the most effectively through that method. And we can also, it's a part human, part algorithm scenario. But it is a way that you can kind of find the people who are most using the online medium already to help spread your word the most powerfully, if that answers your question.
Okay. And Amy, quickly, what about that service that you described there would not apply to commercial activity and products and services?
Absolutely nothing. It would completely apply in the commercial space as well. And kind of surprisingly for us, as far as we know, there's no one in the commercial space doing anything like that.
Yeah, excuse me. I want to preface what I say by acknowledging the fact that there is a generational divide on people that understand new media, and I think I'm just barely on the wrong side of it. But I do want to ask a couple questions. How is Ning different from Facebook, first of all? And then I also want to ask a question about the Radar tool, and if you're experiencing pushback or blowback with privacy concerns, with paying close attention to who's doing what on the internet.
Sure. So the difference between Ning and Facebook. So Facebook is a single social network. If you join it, you're a member of Facebook, and there's one way that world looks, which is blue and white. On Ning, every single network is topical. So Ning is in the background, and whatever the topic of the network is in the foreground. So the List project, or the Pickens plan, or Rebuild the Party, or what have you. And when you join a network on Ning, you're joining the network around that particular area of interest or topic. The way that plays out from a tangible perspective is several-fold. So one is, as a creator of a network on Ning, you have full flexibility and control over how it looks, how it feels, what features you have, what message you're sending. And for the political space, probably the most important piece is that when you're a member of a group or you're on Facebook, all of that data belongs to Facebook. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you've ever gone to your Facebook profile page, any of you, and tried to just copy and paste your friends' email addresses, you can't do it. They actually make it so that all that data stays within Facebook. With a network on Ning, as the person that creates the network, what we call the network creator, you have full access to all of your members' information, their names, their addresses, their zip codes, their email address, so that that data belongs to you rather than to us.
I'm sorry, but do you charge for this, or what's your business?
We have a wide variety of pricing models, starting at free up to, if you bought everything you could from us, it would be about $55 a month. So pretty cost effective.
And I just want to just put an emphasis point on that, which is $55 a month for a site, for a capacity that's 90% of what Barack Obama had on his site last year. So we're talking $600 a year, and you can have 90% of the functionality of the whole Obama site. So this is a revolutionary technology, because for every state rep and every county commissioner and for every small nonprofit in a local community that's struggling to deal with this incredibly fast-changing technology environment, getting ripped off by vendors that don't always serve you well, and all the other thing that happens to people in this space, for $600 a year, you can have super high-end capacity. And one of the things that, for the Democrats in the room, is that let's just say the RNC is more than interested in using this tool to play catch-up in the 5-year head start, 6-year head start that the Democrats have really over the Republicans on this. So this is a completely different way, I think, and one of the reasons I'm excited Jason's here is that I think this will allow us to imagine that within 18 months, everybody running for office and every small nonprofit in the country could all, have an unbelievably robust web presence, social networking presence, very small amount of money. We built our version of it in 30 minutes, so even people on the wrong side of the generational divide can stumble their way through this. And and this is a big leap from where we were 2 years ago. And certainly, I think it's part of what I was talking about is that this is very inexpensive, because their business model. Your question was the business model. 850,000 clients, right? In essence, paying just a little bit with the same technology allows this to work. So this is a very powerful thing. Go ahead.
And to your question, whereas we aggregate a lot of detailed data, all of it's public, very, very strictly public data. So there's no private information that we get access to from any user.
My question was more generally, do you think, have you registered any concern? Part of the appeal of the internet is anonymity,
Right.
being able to look at things without being noticed.
Right.
And that appears to be going away to a certain extent. I mean, you're aggregating great deals of data, of course, but if you're digging down, drilling down deep into identifying very narrow niches of people, do you anticipate any resistance to you identifying 10 people that are looking at this particular website or linked to this website, anything like that?
Right. What we think, as long as it's public information and you're very, very strict about that, users understand that that's the way the internet works. Yep.
Other question? You always get a question.
This time it's not even about women. It's for you. I've been on a couple of Ning groups that are temporary. Like there was a cyberbullying one right after Kathy Sierra and things like that. Do you find that most of them remain, or that a lot of them are to get through an issue and then they kind of evaporate? That's the first one. The second one, and this is a claim of ignorance, can you talk about how you could use this instead of having to endure a wiki, which
Sure.
is much more confusing than you are?
Sure. So to answer your first question, so we see networks across Ning have all different types of lifespans. So we see things that are fairly short-lived, like the Obama cycle was a good example. That really existed and was active during the primary season. We see the same thing around festivals and events. So, for example, there's a very, if any of you are familiar with South by Southwest, which is a big, music and interactive and film conference. We had last year and we'll have again this year a South by Southwest Insider's Guide for people who are going and want to know what the coolest, newest stuff is happening there. So there are things like that, but then there's also the LIST project, the Pickens Plan have been long-lived networks. We have a big footprint in the media and entertainment space around established and up-and-coming musicians and bands and artists and celebrities, and those tend to function much more like fan clubs did a generation ago, and those last for a long time. In terms of your question about a wiki, yeah, we have functionality in the that a network creator can add to their network that you could absolutely use instead of a traditional wiki.
Anything else? Yeah, like that. Hey.
So I have a question about the practical application, or what you would see as the practical application of the radar tool.
Sure.
I think, right, as sort of as a sophisticated analytics for how well your message is getting through, I think that application is evident. But to take sort of a more, classic case study, I mean, if I'm on the George Allen campaign, right?
Right.
And I'm using radar, and one morning I wake up and I see, boy, this video of George Allen's going off the charts. What's going on there? I mean, you mentioned early warning, right? Do I get
Yes.
like a little alarm bell that rings and says, my boss is screwed? 'Cause,
We may not use those words, but yes, it can be daily, it could be instantaneously real time. When something is really starting to catch on fire positively or negatively, that you can get an immediate warning. Yes.
And you would actually have to go in and see and, find out whether it's positive or negative,
Yes.
right? It's
We
not
would,
like a-
and we help with that. It's not all an automated process. It's humans are very involved. It's also, the very practical way is also to say, well, the videos that are working, how can I create more of them? How can and what keywords and what other descriptors I'm using to describe my videos that are helping them work? Well, let's go there. It's just early, real data that you can pivot off of.
For Amy, if I was buying ads on TV, in what situation would I not want to use your tool? Because it seems like this is just, stupid to not be working with you.
I agree. I mean, in all seriousness, if you're doing a media buy that is, extremely low budget media buy, you have, $150,000 to spend. Probably every ounce of that money should actually go towards the buy rather than towards some small tiny bit of it towards analytics to improve the efficiency of the buy. But if you're running for U.S. Senate, governor, competitive congressional, you're doing nationwide issue advocacy, your buy is more than $150,000. And then it would be very advantageous to undertake the analysis to make it more efficient.
I think the other thing that's going to happen is that because of increased efficiency of buys, including the ability with cable now to more geo-target effectively on television, you're going to start to see a whole class of candidates who, at the state legislative level, statewide level, who let's say are in the $500,000, $700,000 campaign level, who couldn't afford TV before because of the waste and the bleed of the inefficiency of television buying, now should be moving away from mail and other, frankly, less effective media to this new array of media options, including TV. And I think one of the big interesting things that's going to happen this cycle is that just like we may see universal social networking, high-end web stuff, you could see thousands and thousands of campaigns that are now using television that just couldn't use TV before because of this kind of stuff. So this is a big-time, game-changing event in politics, because TV has been the province of this priesthood class, right, particularly on the Democratic side, where you needed 1 million or more to get in because of just the mechanism of the business, right? And there's going to be a different business model created, I think, to service this sort of medium and low-level market. And take a guy like Joe Garcia, who used to work here and ran for Congress last cycle, and this isn't television buys, but his campaign produced 8 web videos. One of them got 50,000 views on YouTube in a congressional race. That's a lot of people in a congressional race, produced on a laptop, in their campaign. So I think one of the things we're going to see is a huge now change in the way that TV happens below the gubernatorial, senatorial level, throughout the country. And I think this is going to be one of the great arms races in the next couple of years, fed by the great arms, the people feeding the arms race right here, Precision Buy.
It's Amy and Simon, I guess. You commented that there's huge sea change happening. There's wonderful things happening in the monitoring and sort of early alerts and warnings. What about the creative response to that, though? I mean, in other words, what to do with that information? And especially with television, it may be a dominant medium, of course, going forward, but the way it's viewed and the creative assets that are put into it and how the commercials and so forth in terms of DVR and everything else, that's going to change, time shifting, and that's going to change how ads are delivered. So what about that part of the equation?
Well, I think that with television, like with any medium, the targeting is optimally deployed only with the right messaging. And this is where, we can provide media consultants and media buyers with great information about exactly where to target the placement of those ads. But in the end, the campaign is reliant on the media consultant and the creative team coming up with the very best messaging to use in that advertising. And the targeting can help guide what some of the more effective messages might be in terms of particular issues, say, or things like that. But in the end, without a great creative, the best targeting is not even there cannot be optimal.
I think part of what all this means, and Tim should weigh in, and Jason, is that politics doesn't happen just in September and October. Right? I mean, part of what this is all about is that this is a 24/7, 365 thing now. And this idea that there's sort of an odd year and an even year, and there's a season for campaigns, and there's a season, campaigns every day. It's every day. And this idea this old vision of where, my favorite story about television, right, is not only do you need 51% market share in Democrat in a campaign to win, but, we spend the most amount of money when the least number of people are undecided, right, as a model. And when you actually talk to real advertising people about sort of the way political campaigns are structured, they laugh, right, because it's, you're spending all your money when there's a 10% undecided rate and you're spending no money when 50% of the people are undecided, right? It's sort of, the math of it doesn't make any sense. And I think that, I think you're going to see, because of the always-on media world that we live in, right? I mean, if you think about it, just 10 years ago, Barack Obama, if you wanted to connect to the Obama campaign, you could touch it whenever you wanted, right? At 3:30 in the morning, you could go onto the site. It was happening all the time. It was always on. Well, all of politics is always on now. And I don't think that, and I think some of the innovation is going to be is that how do you run a campaign for 2 years or forever, right? I mean, why does a congressional campaign website ever go down, right? I mean, people are still interacting and still want to know, and this is part of what the Obama team is struggling with the DNC right now. So I do think that there is this issue of, I think you're going to start seeing much more engagement in the off years. I think you're going to see, and what's going to happen is there are going to be enterprising consultants who are going to figure out how to do this the way that Ning figured out a business model that allowed to move incredible technology out to a lot of people. The creative is going to have to change dramatically. And this idea that you got these 6 media consultants who, make tens of millions of dollars a year and have houses in Italy and everything else, I don't think this is how this is going to work, going forward. And certainly if it does, then those people who use those consultants are going to be left behind, I think, by more entrepreneurial consultants in the future. Two more questions. Did you have anything to add to that?
I think my only addition in new media or traditional media, better analytics just doesn't help you with your counter response, but helps you see with more precision the damage you took. And then that can help you craft your counter response.
Sort of along the same line of some of this creative, you described that videos, photos, and other people's profiles were the first things that really kind of let the trap, the honey that brought people in. Right. Do you offer some consulting? Do you hold the hand of your clients and say, start slowly folding these things in over time, and here's how you give it legs and grow it?
That's certainly something we can do. With 850,000 networks, most of them are created organically by individuals or by groups, but for people who want additional help, that's definitely something we can offer.
One last question, anybody? Yeah. 2 bites of the apple.
For Dewey Digital. So do you guys have the ability to determine a geographic relevance of viewership when something goes viral? So,
Yes, to within the state level, and in some cases down to the city.
okay.
Any final thoughts, gang? Anything you want to end with? It's an exciting new day. Jason, you've come east. Thank you for coming.
I'm just excited to be here and to get the opportunity to talk to all of you, and would love to help any of you who are interested create a network on Ning.
My other thought is, by plan or other, we're almost saying the same thing. It's about better reaching people with the issues they care about, how to better, more specifically target them, and how to better engage in a new politics.
Anytime we can be more efficient and reach more of our targets through all of these different mediums, we're more likely to win. So let's go do that.
Okay, two final things before we wrap up. One is that our next event here at NDN is on Thursday at 11:30. It has nothing to do with new tools, but it's about immigration reform and the rise of the Hispanic vote in the United States. We've got a really remarkable panel. Please check back on our blog. And the next in the new tools series will be March 10th. Be a lunch here with Joe Rospers from Blue State. I almost said Dewey Digital. Blue State Digital, who is the online media director for the Obama campaign. It'll be just me and him having a conversation, and all of it. I'm dying to be at that one too. I'm anxious to hear Joe's thoughts now. He's at a little distance from the campaign, reflecting back on this amazing thing they just did, and also looking forward. So that will be on March 10th. And so thanks to all of you. Thanks for our panelists. And for those of you watching on the web, we had quite a few people today. Please log in on our blog and let us know what you thought about how it looked and the experience. And welcome for those of you in D.C. We look forward to seeing you at future events. Thanks, everybody, very much.
Great.